out of here.
Home!
I need to reach people.
Home, you asshole! I will continue screaming. Would you like that? Because I'm actually finding it really, really relaxing.
Well, why don't you explain to me why what I'm doing is wrong?
For a massive chunk of my life, I was very political, and so I used to see people like this through the lens of politics. Now, this is typically either an extremist or reactionary, depending if it's progressive or conservative, and you'd have people who would just want to shout down other opinions, and so I would always lean into the idea that there is free speech, and I would argue on political grounds. Now, there is another subsection where you might say this is a mental illness issue that would cause someone to be so angry and upset about differing opinions to the point they're just screeching in the middle of the street, which is insane. But I've kind of shifted my focus away from viewing this through the lens of politics or even psychology, and to really start looking at it with spiritual eyes, because a woman like this is oppressed by our enemy. She is oppressed, and by that I mean there is something inside of her, something that is not her but is demonic, that is trying to use her to shout down anything that is of God or of Jesus. This man is just out there trying to preach Jesus. Now, in the normal society, you have what's called tolerance, and a person would just walk by, that's okay. You have people like me who would probably engage and want to debate. If it's a different person, a different opinion, I want to know why. I want to know how I can maybe influence and change that person's mind. But when you get to the point where you're just shouting people down and you're just screeching in the middle of the street, I think we've crossed over from just a simple disagreement way away from tolerance, and we're getting into more of oppression. And so a person like this needs deliverance. They need Jesus to free them. Now, unfortunately, if they don't want free, they're not going to be free. But peel back a little bit the physical eyes, because you can be political. You can go at this political. You can make fun of the woman. There's a lot of ways you can approach this. Now, you might say, well, she's an enemy of the gospel. Well, how does Jesus treat his enemies? He loves them. He cares for them. And so we have to love and care for people like this. We have to honestly see that they are being used, that they are being abused, and that they are not actually completely in control of themselves. There is something else behind the scenes that is deceiving them, influencing how they're going to speak and approach other people. And if you come and you try to fight fire with fire, you're literally playing into the hands of Satan, because, well, what he wants to do is have you so angry at a person like this that you would lash out, that you would then begin to try to torment them back, make fun of them, denigrate them, ostracize them, or even from a government level, oppress them. That's his goal. But what Paul tells us to do is he says we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, authorities. We're not supposed to be saying, hey, this is a person and they are my enemy. Rather, we don't wrestle against the person, we wrestle against the spirit, the principality that is behind it. And so any principality, any spirit, demonic spirit that's trying to shout down or suppress truth, the gospel message, the love of Jesus Christ, ability to be saved by coming into faith with Christ, anything like that, that's your actual enemy. And so you want to preserve the person because they are a treasure of God. Like, this is a daughter of God. I mean, it's like someone who's just like beautiful and then covered with something like tar that is keeping the beauty hidden down deep. You want to clean them up because they're worthy of it. They're worth it. They are made in the image of God. And so I would really recommend people who you watch videos like this, or you might engage with people like this in person, especially if you're in the ministry, to not give in to anger, certainly not hatred, to be able to see behind the person of what kind of spirit they have come into agreement with. A person like this is probably dealing with things like depression, probably something like a orphan spirit or a victim spirit of some sort. And they've probably been abused or hurt in their life in one form or another, whether that's proactively or like neglect, for example. And so they literally need Jesus to deliver them. And that's not going to happen if you're just shouting back at them or denigrating them. But you can love them deeply and pray for them that they meet Christ, that he does free them. And I think that is the best way to approach this. It's literally people like this are good soil in one sense, and that sense being that they have been held captive by darkness for so long that even a hint of light and a hint of love is going to go very far. That little tiny seed of love, if you're going to love someone like this, it can go into their heart. It's going to go very, very, very far. So that's my encouragement for you today, is to start seeing your enemies as potential salvations instead of something to wage war against. You wage war against the things that are keeping them held back and held captive and away from Jesus Christ, because your goal is to save them. That was Jesus's goal too.